Welcome to Tales by Jin. I'm Jin, and you're listening to Arman and the Flaming Dragon. Enjoy! A drink for my story, you say? Well, if you're buying, I'm talking. Cheers, mate. It was the 40th year in the reign of King Del Nadio. His royal graciousness saw fit to hold a most exquisite banquet in honor of this landmark occasion, inviting all in his kingdom, be they commoner, noble, or other, to attend. Other, you ask? Well, that'd be my kind. You know, the ones that keep the noble life worth living. The ones behind the scenes. Or rather, behind your chair with a knife. Anyway, there was the banquet. Everyone far and wide came to the great halls of the castle to partake in the merriment. The privileged few of the higher classes showed up in their carriages and whatnot, dressed as sharply as they dared, although most of the guests showed up on the grounds wearing a shirt they felt had the least amount of holes. But regardless of one's social status, all were herded into the main hall for the presentation of the Queen and the King's daughter and the initiation of the feast. Now, normally, the Queen and the Princess would show up at the King's side like any other bloke, but along with this being the 40th year of the reign of His Graciousness, this was also the Princess's summer of age. And the Princess, oh, did she have suitors, and for good reason. That girl was quite a sight for the eyes. Hair the color of honey, eyes as pure as jade, tantalizing figure that wasn't too blessed, and yet not quite a bored either. Not to mention guaranteed succession to the throne. Who wouldn't want to try their hand? Heck, if I wasn't in my line of work... Wait. No, that's the Queen. The Princess was such an unholy blight upon God's green earth that even a mountain troll would find it difficult to lay with her. I've no idea how I continue to mix the two up. Maybe it's just wishful thinking, when the mother is such a vision of loveliness, and an indirect glance at the daughter could shrivel your... I'm getting off topic. The banquet, right, the banquet. So, the entire kingdom was at this little soiree. It was the perfect time to announce his daughter's entrance into the market, or so the king thought. When she was introduced to the hall, my trained ears picked up many a stifled retchings, which would have been grounds for death had I been on active duty. But even if I had been, there would be no death, for I was preoccupied doing the same. Then His Graciousness blessed the grandiose meal before us, and we partook. Or, at least, the ones of us with iron piping partook. No one wanted to be the first to waste the gracious gift imparted to them by their king, and who among us had the strength of will to keep their meal down with that... Long live King Del Nadio, and may his loins bear a more appropriate fruit, for all our sakes. But before His Graciousness could even think to question as to why no one was enjoying this bountiful meal, the roof disappeared, ripped clean off by the lash of a dragon's tail. Naturally, panic seized the hall by the balls, and I let out a most vehement sigh, for I knew just what this meant for me. I was by His Graciousness' side just as a scaled claw descended for the Queen through the hall's newly constructed sunroof, accompanied by the scaly visage of our abductor. The dragon paused, claws poised around the Queen, but not quite gripping her. It seemed the beast was puzzling over something, as though it couldn't make up its mind in some matter or another. The dragon raised its claw and went for the princess, then paused again, more contemplating, and then ultimately the dragon put its claw to its chin, as though it were mulling over a tough move in chess. I felt it was my duty to simplify matters as best as possible for the sake of those who hadn't the presence of mind to escape the chaos during the ordeal surrounding the throne, so I caught the dragon's eye with a bit of shifting around and nudged my elbow in the direction of the beast. I mean the princess. Right, the princess. The dragon actually retched. The others must have thought that gurgling sound to be a growl or the promise of coming flames, but I saw in the eyes of the dragon the truth. Then, after only a brief hesitation, the abductor remembered his role and made off with his less than spectacular bounty. In moments, the great King Del Nadio was on his feet, shouting peace and restoring the order. Yes, just like that. Over and over he cried, "Peace, peace," until the last of his subjects finished rejoicing at the absence of the princess, cowering at the presence of the dragon. Once the whole had been settled enough, he turned to me and cried, "You, Arman, I don't pay you a noble salary and grant you a room in my castle to sit around pondering life's perplexities and getting fat off the results of my hunts. I want you to retrieve her now, no matter the cost." And so I went, bowing graciously and without a word in argument, because no one says no to those eyes, those beautiful jade rings pleading at you from over the shoulder of your king, especially if they seem to be promising more than the usual reward, be it my imagination or no. I started my journey heading north to the hills where the only known dragon cave in these parts existed. It was a rough journey, for there were many trials along the way. I had to battle trolls, goblins, demons, and the occasional Jehovah's Witness. Okay, so my blade hadn't seen the light of day in years and had probably rusted through in its sheath. I used it so little. But I was only trying to keep the story interesting. Nobody wants to hear, and I trekked into the hills and right up to the cave without even so much as a mouse sneezing in my general direction. The dragon was quite the host. He greeted me at the entrance and showed me in, mentioning something about some magic goblet he had somewhere in his hoard that filled itself with whatever the bearer wished to drink if I was thirsty. But I had to decline on grounds that I was present strictly for business. The dragon mentioned that that was too bad, and that maybe I should stop by some other time, and maybe we could hang out or something, and I somehow managed to weasel my way out of that offer as well. You know how a friend asks you if you want to go do something, and suddenly your schedule's full with jousting tournaments and assassinations? Yeah. Darrell, as he pressed me to address him, politely showed me to the hollow where the princess was being kept upon my request. Initially, I was sure there was some sort of mistake, but Darrell pointed out the golden throne upon which rested a large, creamy white, cocoon-shaped mass. Darrell assured me that the princess was alive inside and that the white fluid used to form the material of the cocoon was produced by his salivary glands, and I believed him wholeheartedly. Need I again describe the princess? So we puzzled over how best to resolve the situation. I was content to let the broad stay where she lay, but I had my obligation to my king to fulfill. Darrell was plenty fine with letting her go, as she didn't very well match the china, or anything else for that matter, he noted. But he was obligated by dragon law to abduct at least one princess during her summer of age and slay at least 100 suitors, pursuers, retrievers, knights, what have you, before releasing her to any brave soul beyond number 101. We had quite the conundrum on our hands, so I did the only thing I could do in this sort of situation. I pulled a gold coin from my pouch. Heads, we go for each other's throats as required by mutual law. Tails, we say sod the entire deal and grab some mead. I kissed the coin for good luck and flipped it high. It spun through the air, clattered a bit on the stony floor, and rolled to the foot of the cocoon princess before coming to rest once more. And lo, the king's tarnished bust sneered at us both. I sighed and drew my blade, which to my surprise hadn't rusted through after all, with the enthusiasm of an overworked donkey at the plough. This wouldn't be enjoyable for either of us, so we agreed to make it quick. I lunged as best one can at a beast many times one's own size and struck true, aiming for the beast's great scaly neck. But I was deflected by a claw. I made to attack again, but Darrell made a strange noise and turned away from me. I wouldn't dare strike an engaged enemy whose back was turned to me, so I cautiously made my way to Darrell's side and asked him what was wrong. He merely whimpered and showed me the claw that I had struck. It was chipped pretty nastily, but I didn't think I had hit the quick, so I shrugged and told him as much. Darrell went into a frenzied rage, stomping about, knocking treasure here and there and elsewhere, and making a general mess of things as he fumed on about how long it took to get claws to shine like that. He went on and on about how hard it was to find a manicurist who wouldn't run on sight, and who could actually work nails this big, and other such things I couldn't quite catch as I was busy doing all I could not to die. Just trying not to die, and then crinkle squelch. Or something to that effect. I mean, it's not exactly easy trying to describe the sound of a crystallized saliva cocoon and the contents therein being crushed underfoot of a rampaging dragon. But, nevertheless, the sound immediately brought Darrell back to his senses, or at least stopped the death-making rampage. There were many, "Oh, graciousnesses," and "I can't believe I'm so flustered," and "Oh, Christ on a carabiner," before I could calm him down enough to assure him that he had just done the world a favor. He had done the world a favor, yes, but this left me in hot water. It's rather hard to retrieve someone once they've been reduced to a pulpy red and white mush. So I did the only thing I could do. I took Darrell out, and we had a night on the town. It was a cheap night, as you could imagine, because no one sticks around when a dragon shows up. And the things that came out of his mouth after a couple barrels of spirits you wouldn't believe. I never thought a dragon could be so flattering if, well, you disregard the fact that we're of a different species, not to mention the same gender. But things continued on in that fashion until we had drunk about a year's worth of spirits and torched a few houses just for the hell of it. I still can't get past the fact that a dragon called me cute. Eventually, I made my way back to the castle of my lord the King del Nadio, who, upon my empty-handed arrival, stripped me of my salary, my title, and anything else that wasn't attached to my immediate person. I did, however, receive a gift from the Queen, but I doubt many would call an open-handed slap to the face a gift. It was enough for me that her perfect skin made contact with mine, so I took that memory and left my former home. So here I sit, willing to share my tale with anyone with an open ear and coin to share. Maybe one of these days I'll get out of this tavern and earn a respectable living. But, to be honest, I'm perfectly content sitting right here, inside, not out there. Because out there's a dragon that thinks me cute. That's not such a pleasant thought when you're sober. Thank you for listening to Arman and the Flaming Dragon. If you enjoyed this short story, please like it and leave a comment about your favorite part. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more stories to come. And please check out the Ko-fi linked in the description if you would like to support the creation of more content like this. Your support means so much to me. Thanks for stopping by, and may your cave be ever warm.